So first of all, thanks to everyone who came tonight. Welcome officially to the original Silicon Valley. If you've not been here before, I'm looking around the room and I see, aside from myself, maybe, looking at Francois and Patrick, maybe we're old enough to remember the original Silicon Valley. This is it. The three of us know it. And also wanted to just take a moment to say thank you guys for investing your time with us. Thank you for being awesome partners. Those of you in the room, thank you for teaching us about your businesses. We have learned a lot in the 2.5 years since we started Yodlee Interactive. Now, believe it or not, when we went into this business, we had an idea for 5 different vertical markets or 5 target areas. We're now in 35, most of which we're doing well, some of which we're still learning our way through. So if you have any complaints about the product or the platform, Eric is right here up front. You can talk to him later. But mostly thank you. What we're really building here is a community. That is the strength of Yodlee Interactive. That's what we set out to do, to build a community of innovators that are not banks or not closely related to banks in financial services. And I think I feel really good that we're well along that path in terms of helping you create valuable businesses. And that's really what our objective is. Our objective also is to have events like this where we want to add value to what you're doing. And that value can be, from the bottom up, giving you food and drinks. So if nothing else, you walk away with that. But more importantly, we want to add value to your business from the standpoint of information, experience, and mentorship. And today we've got someone here who we think will do just that. We've got Uri Levine with us. We're very fortunate to have him join us. You may have heard of him if you were paying attention. Uri is the one who founded, built, and then sold the map software provider Waze to Google for quite a significant return from an investor's perspective. We won't comment on exactly how much. He can tell you if you want to ask him, but it was fantastic. He's now on to his next venture, which is FeeX, which is basically taking the crowdsourced innovation and crowdsourced model and applying it into financial services spaces. Prior to Waze and FeeX, Uri has served in many roles in the high-tech industry for companies such as OpenWave, Cellatrex, and Comverse, and also serves on the advisory boards of Plus Ventures and ExploreTech Ventures. We are proud to count him as one of the new Yodlee Interactive partners, so we're working very hard to help FeeX be as successful as we can help make it. So please give a warm welcome to our friend Uri Levine. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Realizing that I am the only thing that stands between you and the dessert, I will try to do that briefly. I actually wanted to speak a little bit about crowdsourcing. And, when we think about crowdsourcing, so there are some thoughts. Some of us might be thinking of Wikipedia. Some of us might be thinking of Google, which is also crowdsourcing, automatic crowdsourcing, but also crowdsourcing. But essentially, we use crowdsourcing every day. When we are going into the security line at the airport, we're looking around us and we're seeking for the shortest line, and this is where we're going to find. So we're looking what the other people are doing and basically choosing based on that what to do, whether or not we are following the majority or we're following the minority. It's depending on how confident we are. If you are skiing down and there is an intersection and you need to choose one, if you're a good skier, you would go where there are less people. If you are not a skier, you would go where there are more people. And essentially, we're making these decisions every day. When we started Waze, the biggest problem that we face, and Penny definitely would be able to comment on that, is that we try to build an application, navigation application, and give it away for free. Now, the only problem was that the map was extremely expensive. And so we basically decided that we're going to harness the wisdom of the crowd and we're going to provide map editing capabilities to the users so they can actually generate the maps themselves. And when we started, we had a blank page, right? There was no map, nothing, complete desert. And the first driver that used the application actually created the first road. And basically, when this driver actually went to the office, he created all the intersections and the road going to the office. And on the way back, it was already there. based on where people are going and how fast they are going and the density of the information, and essentially created a map which is completely crowdsourced by the users. At the same time, we also realized that we can create traffic information which is crowdsourced by the user. So if you are going slow, and there are other people like you going slow, we can figure out that there is a traffic jam there and we know exactly how fast people are going and use that information in order to calculate back the routing or the fastest route to go to your destination. Now the only problem is that if we are doing that automatically, we have a complete map but with no names. And this is where we establish or we enable map editing tools, and we basically tell the people, look, if you want to have the street names and the house numbers and points of interest, then here are map editing tools. And you can use them to create the map yourself. And at the beginning, we thought that we didn't know how people are going to engage and whether or not they are going to provide us with the information. What turns out is that if you empower people, then they will do the work for you. And essentially we empower them not only by the tools, but also by self-manage the entire community of the map editors, of the people that creates the map. And we created the tools for them, but we never validated what they've done. And in the early stage when we had discussions with other map companies, they basically say, how do you know, right? How do you know that no one went into the system and instead of the 101 highway called that Uri Levine highway, right? And the real answer is that we didn't know. We didn't know because we didn't validate that. But the other people actually validated that. And when we empower them, they basically create a whole hierarchy, structure of people that are responsible for areas, responsible for greater areas, monitoring the map, monitoring the information that is being provided and doing the validation to the level that what we essentially got is what we called at the time a live map, a map that changes every day. And it was completely controlled by the community, and by the way, there is no way for me to actually change on the map the 101 highway because there are so many people driving there. But I can definitely try to call the driveway to my house, Uri Levine Boulevard, and probably no one would know that it's not the name of that driveway. So essentially, in the map making or the crowdsource of the map making, if there are enough people, then the information turns out to be very, very accurate. And if it's not, if there aren't enough people, then essentially we don't have that information. And I would say that, if there aren't any people driving there, then no one cares. Right? There is no one there, no one cares. Over time, there were a lot of very interesting things that we figured out. One of them is that, because we started from blank page, that would have worked anywhere, right? And so people ask me, do we have maps everywhere? And I said, yeah. And then one day someone asked me, do you have a map in Antarctica? And I said, I don't know. I didn't find out. And I went into the system, figured out that there are actually 27 users in Antarctica. And they're not penguins. Turns out that because the system is actually tracking the way that you go back and forth, researchers use that in order to go back and forth to the camp. Because if there is a snowstorm there is no way that you can find out your way back. But if you create an automatic map that tracks you, then you can. Now, the interesting part is that in all the areas that crowdsource works, what it does is create information. But crowdsource only creates information. And in most of the cases, it creates information faster and better than any other method. So if you think about the most important encyclopedia at the time, the Britannica, there is no Britannica anymore. There is only Wikipedia. And essentially, we took this approach when we started FeeX. And the seeds for FeeX actually started back in end of 2008. So for those of you that remember, 2008 was a pretty bad year for investors. And at the end of the day, I got my annual statement and I was looking at it and I saw that I lost about 20%. And in addition, I paid 1.5% in management fees. And so I called them up and I said, you know, losing 20% is something that I can do by myself. I don't need you for that. And, but it also cost me 1.5%. And then what happened next is that it was, you know, the trigger that I did not expect is that they basically said, okay, we're going to refund you the fees for 2008, and we are going to reduce the fees moving forward. And so initially I was extremely pleased with that because, you know, at least I recovered some of my losses. But when I got home, I started thinking, why are they doing that? What is it that I'm missing here? And what is it that they're hiding? So they were so quick to refund the fees. And I started to ask friends, you know, how much fees you're paying? So that was the initial crowdsource, right? I was crowdsourcing the fees from friends at the same asset manager with the same volumes. I basically figured out that I turned out to be a pretty good sucker. I was paying way too much fees. And when I called them up, they figured out that, okay, maybe it's time to change them. And then the next event is that I tried to do the same thing with life insurance. And the interesting part was that I was asking friends, what is it that they're doing? And the same thing with how much people are making. Right? So if my peers are making more than me, if that means that I have negotiated a lesser deal, or if that means that my employer does not recognize my contribution. And all of a sudden there was a realization that in the finance world, a lot of the information is actually hidden. It's hidden by the providers, and it's not necessarily hidden, it's simply unreadable, right? Or it's, you know, if you have 401k plans and you're trying to figure out how much fees you are paying, it's not even on your statement, right? It's on the prospectus on page 57 or someplace in font 4, and it's there, but it's not readable. And one of the things that we basically said when we started FeeX, we started to investigate that, and we looked at the order of magnitude of fees that people are paying. And it turns out that, you know, 2/3 of the people don't know that their 401k actually costs them fees. And when they did realize that, they didn't know or they didn't realize that this is actually going to be about 1/3 of their nest egg between now and the day that they retire. And if you are looking at the entire market, then there are $600 billion of fees in the US. $600 billion of fees every year. This is more than the construction industry. This is more than the entertainment industry. This is 4% of the GDP. And most people are not even aware of it. And when we try to figure out, okay, how do we find out where these fees are, or how do we deal with the asymmetrical of the information, the fact that they know, or the financial provider, the financial, you know, asset manager, they don't know how much fees they're making. This is their revenue, right? Financial advisor, they don't know. And so if you are in the business of living because of the fees, then you do know. If you are in the side or the consumer that are paying the fees, you don't know. And so we figure out that crowdsource is actually going to be the way for us to, you know, gather this information and empower the users to realize how much fees they're paying and what to do about that. And we just launched FeeX in the US last month. we launched FeeX in Israel about a year ago. And in Israel, I have to say that initially it was much harder. There is no Yodlee in Israel. So people actually have paper statements, which they scan or they take a picture of that or they manually upload them. And on day one, that was my biggest concern. People are not going to upload their statement that they got on a quarterly basis. But they did. And it was pretty easy for the system to actually understand the statement, realize what's the actual fees in there, and tell the user, look, this is how much fees you are paying, and this is what other people like you are paying. Yeah, and this is what we can do about it. This is what it should be doing about that. And I think that today there are in Israel about 40 or 50,000 users that already uploaded statements and using the system to figure out how much fees they're paying. The part that is pretty amazing here is that people don't realize, and I would quote Albert Einstein on that, saying that the eighth power of the world is the compound interest. And those that understand that earn it, and those that don't pay it. So in general, in a more generic form, I would say that if you don't know how much you're paying, you are definitely paying too much. And this is what we're trying to do at FeeX. Obviously, we're using Yodlee to help us to help the users, help us actually to understand what's in the user's account and what are the underlying investment vehicles there and how much fees there are in order to do that. But this is what we believe is the beginning of an information revolution in the space of the finance world. Because as consumers, we know too little, right? We don't know how much fees we are paying. We don't know if we have the right life insurance or not. Actually, 2/3 of the Americans tend to have wrong life insurance for their needs. And if that means that if you have the right life insurance, then probably you do have the wrong one. This is the meaning of 2/3, right? Most of us have wrong life insurance, and most of us are not making the right financial decisions. And part of it is because we don't know, and the part that we don't know is because there are a lot of interest groups in the system that don't want us to. And this is what we're trying to purpose.
You want to take questions? Any questions for Mr. Levine? All right, thank you very much. We have no doubt FeeX is going to be a huge success, and I'm sure you're already thinking about what's next.
I once say that an entrepreneur always knows what's next.
You're going to tell us?
Like, the same problem that we're seeing with lack of information or being helpless in the finance world is the same when we need to fix our car. Like, you take your car to the mechanic, and whatever they will say, you will say yes. You simply don't know. If you don't know, then someone else will know. They definitely use it.
Very good. Thank you very much, Uri. Appreciate it.